Welcome to Season 3 of the Strange, Rare, and Peculiar podcast, a place where we explore the past, present, and future of homeopathy from the perspective of a couple of insiders who have been around the homeo block a couple of times.
Homeo block? What you got there?
Chronic diseases or toast?
I was
Are you
thinking
recording? Oh, hi, welcome to our podcast.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning.
Right, you hadn't said that, so I thought we were just chatting.
No, I wanted to know what was on your plate.
I have toast. I have some sourdough toast. As a gluten-free gal, I order this good bread from a place in Vermont, and they deliver it frozen, which I really like. Bonte Bakery, in case anybody's interested. Yum.
It is good, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Actually, what's really good is this butter that we've been getting. I'll eat anything under that butter. I've been
Butter.
having rice cakes with butter.
You talk funny.
Thank you.
Let me pour you some tea.
If you don't mind, we got a lot to talk about today.
Let's talk about last night.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Wow.
Wow is right. Is that my tea? Thank you. You better follow that up with an explanation or people are going to wonder.
We went to... Well, we kind of did a precursor for our event, in a way.
In a way, we did.
And it was the... Where do we live? We live in the Arboretum, and they have an al fresco event in a large outdoor tent. And, geez, it's been raining cats, dogs, frogs, and socks for the last week. And then it just cleared up and was warm and beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
It was linen suit time, and it was great.
It was kind of a miracle.
It was the first speaker
said,
event.
I'd like to thank whoever sacrificed their firstborn child for this evening of good weather. Because it literally went from being, like the worst to whatever.
And why it matters is because it's in the same venue that we're having our gala.
Yes.
Or our gala. And which is coming up in 3 short weeks.
Oh my gosh, I can't even think about it. So many details.
I know.
So many amazing things. I want to start by saying thank you to all of the people who have generously supported these events that are coming up for us.
It's been overwhelming.
Yeah, by the time this posts, I think it'll probably be, Tuesday the 20th or 21st or whatever is the day that we have to get the numbers to the caterer for the gala. But if people are interested in the seminar, we just got an emergency alert, a flash flood warning until 3:30.
A flash flood?
Flash flood. Anyway, sorry. And one more thing, while I'm having intermittent conversation, did you take the tea basket out of there so we could drink the rest of the tea?
Give me your plate.
It's got my okay. Sorry, everyone. This is really ridiculous. However, back to the thank yous.
But it's important because Denise has got this thing, which she's taught me about tea. And that is that, when you drink, if you've got a pot of tea, and the thing about tea is it's sometimes a temperature cool, so you want to top it up. But what you're topping it up with is tea that's been brewing for another 5 or 10 minutes.
It's bitter. It gets really bitter, so take it out quickly.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's been a really enlightening and somewhat illuminating experience.
I can't believe, though, that never occurred to you.
Never once.
Never came up. Anyway, so a big thanks to everyone for the support. It is, when Al said overwhelming, I have to concur. There have been organizations who have just stepped up to help us distribute the word. Thanks to all of the state organizations for sharing. Thanks to Kim Aaliyah for sending a beautiful note to everyone on his list.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate, and then National Center for Homeopathy bought a table and made a donation. It's really lovely because a lot of folks are gathering their own funds for their own projects. And one of the things I love about the homeopathy community is when we step outside to support each other. And it's like, that's one of the things that we want to be a big part of the Institute for the Advancement of Homeopathy is to have a group of folks who are like an advisory committee who can be a part of helping with fundraising, so that when there are big projects going on, there can be sort of group fundraising. So we know what each other are doing, so that we don't duplicate efforts. I think that there's a way that it becomes like this, like a collaboration hub that feels super important.
A win-win. A win-win-win.
And I'm sorry if I forgot to thank someone. It'll probably come up later.
Oh,
and we'll just add
Boiron.
it in. Oh, Boiron.
Yep.
They've got a table and they're coming. Gosh, the pharmacies are, they've got all these kits for our
Auction.
A kit from Hahnemann Labs, from Washington Homeopathics. Oh, Miranda Castro is sending a bunch of stuff, and she sent out a lovely email on our behalf.
Absolutely.
So,
and actually, some of the auction items.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be fun.
the best one, I think, Karen Allen made such a generous offer. Not offer, it's sitting in our library. Could you describe what it is? I haven't even looked at it.
Well, it's a chunk of metal.
Oh,
But what it is, it's an original plate used by Boricke and Tafel, the pharmacy back in the day. I actually want to research it further. But you look at it, and its writing is backwards.
it's a printing plate.
So it's a printing plate, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of other boxes arrived in our box, and I had a look at them earlier today. Old Boricke and Tafel bottles.
Oh my goodness.
With that are clearly old and used, and with funky old corks and some
I may
good
have
stuff
to bid
in
on
them.
those. Because just what I need is more
need.
homeo stuff. We got another email today I haven't told you. So Margaret Graham, who's the archivist at Drexel University, who is
Margaret,
who is my friend. We've known each other for a really long time, and she was so helpful in my research for my dissertation. It was like she knew what I needed before I knew, or maybe my dissertation only exists because she knew. But anyway, she wrote me today that there are a bunch of journals that they have duplicates of that.
wow.
Yeah. So she asked if we wanted them for our library for our auction. So we'll have to have a look. I think it would be amazing to auction off some journals and
And
things.
of course, the indomitable Tina Quirk.
Oh my goodness. Tina, who, if it weren't for Tina, we would not have the school, because when I got the call,
I would be wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and that's inside of baseball.
that's a story for another day. But Tina made a lovely donation from her and from Dynamis. And so Jeremy and Camilla and Tina, they have just stepped up with like amazing contributions, including lots of auction items, including, I think it's like a 50% off a Dynamis course.
A significant amount of money.
Yeah, like really, really.
Yeah.
I just can't even. Anyway, so thank you, everybody. And I think.
If you missed anybody at this
my
point,
gosh.
our apologies. But
Yeah, we're
anyway, last night it was like, okay, this is real, and
because it's in the same space where we're having our event. So we even though we've been to many events there, looking at it through the lens of, oh my goodness, our people are coming, and we're having our seminar there. So we're having a 3-day sort of retreat seminar, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And if you can't be in Philadelphia, it will be online. So even though you won't be having the yummy food and juice every day,
or engaging in the
forest bathing, but there will be there all the classes will be available, and the conversations and things. So
and if you're interested, what I'm going to be talking about, you can talk about what you're going to talk about, but what I'm going to talk about, I'm meeting old friends from 25 years ago. So back in the early years of the millennium, actually even going back to 1998.
So when you still had a full head of hair.
That's irrelevant.
Long.
That's also inflammatory.
Thin. Sorry. I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Aww.
I might include some photos from back in those days.
You have to. My favorite one.
And but I'm going to be speaking about the provings that I engaged with as the, what do you call it these days, I suppose, principal investigator, and such poisonous stuff as box jellyfish, irukandji.
Is box jellyfish the most poisonous
It kills you in 3 minutes. And it takes 20 minutes to get to a hospital, so you're gone. And those very fortunate people that have survived a wisp of a oh, it's not the right word. I was going to say a tentacle, but just one single strand
right
around a leg creates lifelong, wicked memories. And a bunch of pain. Anyway, so it is.
I wonder,
it is extremely venomous, but lots of other remedies, including some reprovings of old favourites, and two in particular that I was looking at today.
Can I guess? Is it blatta, cockroach, and tuberculinum?
That would be the third one. So blatta,
Yeah.
tuberculinum, and
Pulsatilla?
bufo.
Bufo. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I conducting a proving on a, let's call it, a remedy that we think we know, but that had a poor origin, meaning a pretty poor original proving, as all of those three remedies did, to see what comes through and is replicable with what we think we know, and what is just straight up new, and what is quite possibly fanciful from the symptom picture that we think we know about these remedies. Really illuminating. I think it's going to be fun. I'm loving the preparation of it.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm going to put on a damn fine show.
Of course, you will.
Damn fine.
You're good like that. I have to say, you're good like that. I'm lighting a candle while we're sitting here because that's how I roll. But I'm really excited for that because I actually think that reproving, sort of getting to the point. I mean, there are so many reasons to do it. Not the least of which, of course, is clarification of the symptom picture, but I think it also will demonstrate the things that are consistent, and questions like students bring up the most amazing questions.
Watch out for your plant.
My plant almost knocked it over. Students bring up the most amazing questions, and that actually was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, but we're kind of getting there naturally. I wanted to bring up some of the questions that came up this week, but because it's the last, next week is the last week of the academic year, and then in July we have a clinic intensive, and then we have these other sort of pop-up classes, but the academic year is done. And so I do these fireside chats with each cohort, which is kind of fun. It's just just spending an hour together chatting, and people get to ask questions, and the question that most consistently has come up in the past couple of weeks in these sort of open question sessions are always about provings. More than...
Why is that? Is it because we've taken folks to a level of critical thinking about the original source material?
I think that's part of it.
And I know that there's a couple of lectures, I can't remember the names, but you do your critical thinking around modern methodologies. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's a part of it, but also I think it's hard to fathom unless you've done it. And so it's the part of homeopathy that's like the shaman part, where you are stepping into another reality. It always sounds amazing, especially if you read some of the new, like people who write all the proving things through like the lens of the goddess. It's like, it sounds like it's such a good time, but really if you have like a vomit experience or whatever, I mean, I've had some bad trips, as have you.
Yeah.
And then it's tough. But the question...
the maggots are coming over the hill.
What was that?
That's all right. That's just something I just said.
Oh, that's not for a proving symptom.
It's a bad trip.
Oh, I get it. Sorry. I'm not really up on the bad trip thing. I know. Keep up. I often will make jokes about like a crackhead or whatever as if I know. Like while I'm teaching, I'll use that as an example.
The hilarious one that I've heard you talking about recently, I was walking past your office and I heard you talking bong talk.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, if there's a person on the planet who has had the least experience with a bong,
that would be me.
It's going to be you.
I hate stuff like that. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
It doesn't agree with me.
Fine.
Anyway.
Just in case anyone was wondering.
Right, but what that means is that I've watched people. And so I've observed, as a sober person,
yes,
the bong talk firsthand. Anyway, but I digress. What was I saying? Oh, about the questions people ask. So that I think one of the questions that comes up a lot is who's healthy enough to participate in approving.
That's actually really simply dealt with, but what were we going to say?
Well, the example that I used is just about how it's not about health and no symptoms. You're not going to find that person. You have to know their symptoms, right? You have the baseline of health. But I think the biggest question is whether or not a person can be pushed and they come back up. They wobble and then they return to their center, because you have to have the elasticity in your health status in order to be able to withstand approving without getting sort of stuck in it.
Boom. Yeah.
And
no, so you've identified two really important things. The first is there's got to be resilience of the vital force, elasticity of the vital force.
Exactly.
To actually push back against the stress or the impression made on it by the proving remedy. And then there's the starting point that you just made. And if the starting point is, a whiteboard, then, you're good to go. But so many of us are not healthy without symptoms. But the way around it, of course, is a check and a balance.
Right.
And the check and the balance is that you have your case taken.
Yeah.
And if the person that's taking your case is a skilled homeopath and supervisor, is clear about where your chronic health is at and it's unchanging, then you're good to go. And the other thing, of course, we do is usually about a 10-day health diary. And again, a combination of those two things with the proving investigator, just checking to make sure, it's all good, then, that person is good to go.
Because what you don't know is where your susceptibility is. So, for example, the worst proving that I ever did was in 2007. And I thought I was pretty healthy.
Right.
By then, I was 8 years away from having had my last kid. Sure, I'll have some more tea. I'm really sad because I finished my toast and it was so good. So I felt like, okay, I wasn't sort of in that kind of post-child, whatever. I was back to normal. I was in, really good shape. I had run a marathon a couple of years before. I felt really good. And so I didn't actually feel... Oh, when I say ran a marathon, you started laughing. Sorry, people. The caveat, it wasn't, technically it's not running at the speed that I go, but I did finish it. And I
finished, it's accurate to say you finished a marathon.
I finished a marathon and I did, I ran. I wasn't running, like those people that poop along the way because if they stop, they'll mess up their time. My time, there was a lady with a purse ahead of me. There was the guy that ran backwards was ahead of me. But
wasn't there someone skipping in the story?
With the jump rope. I forgot about that. Yeah. So, clearly not competitive. And I stopped along the way. My kids were there on the sidelines and I stopped to chat.
Do you know there's a really interesting thing going on? BBC is talking about it at the moment.
BBC.
There's an inspirational photo of an ultra-marathon runner, a woman who's not doing a marathon, but 20. She's running 1,000 miles or something like that, but she's stopping and breastfeeding her kid.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's taken hold, and there's a strong conversation of support around, gee, that's a dynamic picture.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the opposite, that people were like, why are you doing that? Are you
no,
gonna have enough milk or whatever?
It's not.
Oh,
it's
good.
actually, it's inspirational.
I love that. Anyway, so I was in what I would have thought was a good state of health, but got hit by the ugly stick. You just don't. You just don't know, right?
Ugly stick? No, not the ugly stick.
Susceptibility is a beast, right?
I don't want that.
But then there's the part where you could have some healing. One of the things I was saying to the students is, if we look at it through the alchemical lens, which of course is my lens of choice, right? The process of alchemy is about speeding up nature, right? To make something in a compressed time period, right? And so it's the same thing with homeopathy. You get a remedy and that helps your healing more quickly than it otherwise would have if you're talking about something acute. And if you're talking about something chronic, it's putting life into an organism otherwise losing life, right? So with that in mind, though, when you do a proving, if you've got this really strong susceptibility and you get whacked by a remedy, then theoretically it could be that stress testing with the energetic disease could actually be contributing to an increase in health in the long run.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, like Hahnemann says, do provings, get healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you stronger.
Yeah.
But
in good measure.
Yeah.
Because
not too many, but yeah.
Not too many and not too close together.
Yeah, it's. I'd like to. There's a topic there's a cul-de-sac in what you just said.
Yeah.
That I don't want to go down today, but I want to tell you about it, and I want to research it. Okay. I think it would be an interesting conversation because Paul Herskew, in his book on provings that he wrote kind of in response to Jeremy's book, talked about something that Hahnemann said that Jeremy doesn't talk about, and that is the constitutional type or makeup.
Yeah.
I was going to use the German word, but I've suddenly forgotten it. Gesellschaft or something.
It's the Gemüt.
The Gemüt.
There's the Geist and the Gemüt.
Yeah, and it's and how that impacts a symptom picture.
Interesting.
And let's come out of it now because I just thought that's a really interesting conversation, and I think highlights would be if there was a person or a team of people that against standards measured the quality of provings. I think it would be a really interesting one of the standards to have.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And actually, I wonder if a little investigation or a big investigation into that would be helpful to understand how we got off track with the ways in which constitutional prescribing has taken hold.
Totally. You know who suggested what I just said?
Who?
Nadia.
Nadia Perry.
Yeah. As a research project last year.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Oh my God, it's incredible. It's like, it's a giant project. It's a decade project. It's like Vathulka saying, I'm going to write a Materia Medica.
Yeah.
He's up to...
N?
Yeah,
no, not even.
I don't think so.
But close. But anyway, Nadia would be a perfect person for that. And she's living in Germany, so she could... She'll know her Geist from her Gemüt.
Gesellschaft from her Gemeinschaft. Erbschaft is the word I was thinking.
Oh,
I can't remember. Maybe it's something else.
I like this conversation.
By the way, it's very important that people realise that that rumbling in the background is not Denise's stomach, but it's the cat.
It's Hildegard Bingen on the scene. So I love that you're going to talk about these provings.
Yeah, me too.
I had thought on the day that you were teaching, the second day, because we're having this party for everybody who's attending called the Great Homeo Nerd Out that evening, and I was going to come back here I'm making dinner for everyone, but now I actually really want to hear I really want to hear these lectures.
Well, you could tune in.
Maybe I'll do that. I am doing. I'm sort of in this all autoimmune all the time place because the more I dive into this space, the more it just becomes, it's sort of inevitable to stay there. And once I don't know, for me, seeing autoimmunity in the way that I have come to see it, which is through a deep sort of resonance with Hahnemann's chronic diseases and Sora in particular. Mm-hmm. Like you can't go back once you get there, and then it shakes the tree for everything, And so, like tonight, actually, I'm doing a webinar in Australia. Well, for there tomorrow morning.
Specifically
on autoimmunity.
New South Wales. That's right.
And I'm excited about it. The people that I've met so far are so nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's been fun because I teach this all the time, but each time is an opportunity to go back and revisit material, find some articles and whatnot. And so what I've been doing, because I'm, it's one thing when I teach to our community where, if you're an AHE student, like we kind of build you up to this by the time you get to semester 4, like all of this real deep dive into autoimmunity and case management and all that is just, it sort of rolls that way. You have all of the groundwork is laid. But like if I go to teach it to a group that I don't know their baseline.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And that's why, when we went to a coffee shop today.
But you've taught it, say, in a similar thing in Scotland, right?
But it's different. I mean, I taught autoimmunity, and I chose the lens of pans and pandas and the symbiotic sort of biome issue, which I'm going to do next week there. But the groundwork for it, because there's so much about it, right? And I was working on it. We went to a coffee shop this morning to do some work, and it was funny because it was cold, and so I had to wear my sweater, which he had to decide humiliation or warmth. And you opted for warmth, which I think was a good choice. And I think the humiliation was
humiliated.
Minor. No, I was. No, just kidding. I can't resist because your face is so funny when I get you. No, actually, it didn't. It wasn't your style. Let's just say it's not your usual style.
Hell no.
No, but it was fine. Anyway, but it was interesting because I was working on just deconstructing this argument and thinking about it from the lens of someone who maybe has only learned a little bit of chronic diseases. How can I get this point across? And it occurred to me that if you're a homeopath who hasn't delved into chronic diseases, it's hard. It's really hard. And like the fact that chronic diseases has been sort of, I was going to say watered down, but that's not the right term. How would you say it about how people have kind of taken this really robust and really kind of elegant but complex concept and made it into checklists?
Oh, I think that's cultural or natural, depending on the perspective of the user of the theory.
Yeah.
To me, you see, on the one hand, what a great question. But there's a whole lot of logic, to my mind, about how and why that's happened. Sorry, I just kicked the dog. Was that you?
No, that was me.
Oh, sorry about
that. Woof! Call me a dog.
Down boy. So,
the logic.
Let me just talk about it, and hopefully I'll keep it on track. So, the first checklist I ever saw was in Curler, that book, Handbook of Homeopathy.
Yeah, it's a little one,
and it's a great chapter on Hahnemann's theory of chronic disease because it describes his own evolution, which is exactly the same as Hahnemann's when you think about it, because he gave a situation of a case of a kid where he gave 8 different remedies, chasing symptoms, before going, look at the biographical information, look at the body type, look at the symptoms broadly, more broadly from a larger totality perspective, and it's a calc carb case. And giving calc carb not only dealt with the problem of the day, but the kid came less often and was healthier.
Sure.
So it's perfect. It's Hahnemann's journey. They're right. And then he goes in and just says, okay, so these are syphilitic headaches, and these are psychotic headaches, and these are psoric headaches. And this is the sort of vertigo you sometimes get in a syphilitic case, and da-da-da-da-da. Now, that's not exhaustive. But then I saw, when I was probably working at the Sydney College of Homeopathic Medicine, and I saw my first sort of, what I would call an Indian checklist. Yeah. And those are exhaustive, like pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of psoric symptoms compared to the digestive symptoms of the psoric or syphilitic client. And so, that was outside of my experience. Now, the reason that's important, because I think what I got was actually equally tough to use, because what I learnt was 3 words: underproduction, overproduction, ulcer. Yeah. That was, or self-destruction or destructive. And those are useful terms if they are surrounded by lots and lots of other information. Yeah. But those words in and of themselves are really, really pretty hard to apply. Oh, totally. Clinically. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you can, and the thing is that you can stress test any symptoms in any of those checklists, and you can find that they need to be in a different category altogether, which I think could be maddening. But can I make a confession while... Oh, you're pouring me more tea. Thank you. Really? Hold out. Good. Aren't you glad we took the basket out?
Whatever.
Whatever. I have to make a public confession. So I'm going to feel so much better. You know, I'm Catholic, so confessing always makes things better. When I worked for a school where there was a lot of quote unquote miasmatic prescribing and a lot of conversation about clearing the miasm, and there was a lot of sort of detoxification and giving nosodes for all this business. And I got to the point, I'm sort of embarrassed, but not, but I had, cohorts of students that were so confused by it. And I said, for 2 or 3 years, I said, just don't even worry about it. I'm going to tell you the story of it. I'm going to tell you how Hahnemann used it. And then I want you to not think about it at all, because it was a habit that had to be broken. Because I was the clinic teacher as well. So I was seeing the attempts to apply that logic in the clinic. And now I want to go back to all of them and say, by the way, now can we talk about, come back so I can show you what we do with it now.
So I was teaching the psychotic miasmatic disease this week.
Yeah, I was sad to see I didn't get to teach it this year in that class.
It's just because I think my lecture on it's probably just a little bit better.
No, your syphilis lecture is the best. It's the best syphilis lecture on the planet. I think that.
But what I ended up saying was
is up for grabs.
The challenge for me is that you can use this in 70% of cases. That's the number for me, and it's not. There's no research behind that. It's just a feeling.
I'd even say a little bit less.
Right, and therefore.
And can I tell you why I would say less?
Yeah, right.
For 2 reasons. One is that the miasm is not always evident at different stages of the case. Number 1, and number 2 is that we don't have clear miasmatic understanding of all the remedies. Therefore,
that's exactly it. So therefore, should we even call it a theory?
Yes.
Why?
Because I'm sitting here.
Surely
I have
theory,
my.
Einstein's general theory of relativity.
I don't know why we started calling it Hahnemann's theory, and every time I say it, I think it's not a theory.
Hahnemann's
chronic diseases, their peculiar nature, and their homeopathic cure.
But he outlines his theory of chronic disease.
Theory says I'm thinking about it.
Well, theories, no, because for me, the term theory, if he changed the word to model, I wouldn't mind it if he changed the word to model. But because a theoretical framework means that it's applicable in all circumstances. And it helps the user.
But it just because you can't apply it in every point of analysis in the evolution of your case, the trajectory of healing, doesn't mean that it doesn't hold as a construct. It just means that it's not the tool to be used at each decision-making juncture. There will be times when it's not available. There will be times when it is the only way to look at a case. You've heard when we have a really syphilitic case in clinic, we haven't done this in a while, but sometimes cases just are so syphilitic that I got the students, they just yodel syphilis before we do our analysis, which makes the junior students a little bit nervous, I think. But it's a way...
What you just said has got to be... I have to push back. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So, gravity...
Yeah.
happens as a theoretical model,
and
it works every time. It explains everything related to mass or objects falling.
How much of Newton's work, if you're going to talk gravity, right? So Isaac Newton.
It works 100% of the time as long as you're not looking through a telescope or a microscope.
There you go. There's 2.
Well, then that's where Einstein's general theory of relativity solved the problem. I know now there's a problem with Einstein, apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's limited by the knowledge that we have. And so when you look at this through the alchemical lens...
The alchemical lens?
Totally. Look, Newton, as an alchemist,
yes,
Isaac Newton, wrote more on alchemy.
He wrote
than
triple on
all of his other works combined.
Yes.
I'm okay with the fact that this isn't... that in this moment I can't define sort of the usefulness of this at every juncture in the case analysis or in the case management process. But I do believe that it underlies everything. And that's the miasm idea, the 3 main diseases. I want to stay on track, but I can't help myself once we start talking about this through the alchemical lens, because one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is Hahnemann's definition of miasm and why he chose that word when it already had a definition at that time. And one of the things I want to sort of prove out is that, because I'm pretty sure about this, that it's related to the idea of spontaneous generation. So miasma is also related to the spontaneous generation principle. So like maggots. Weren't you talking about maggots before?
Maggots coming over the hill.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, but he was super clear on his definition of miasm.
Absolutely.
An infectious agent.
Yes.
A germ.
Except that there is definitely the kind of epigenetic idea of it. But the germ and the bug, I think, is really important. Like, for example, so I've got my chronic diseases here because I'm just, this is where I'm getting the language.
Let me paint you a picture, my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a book, but it looks like a porcupine because it's got so many Post-it notes and things sticking out of it.
It does.
She's written all as sin.
And I feel bad because this was yours.
This is mine.
It's yours, so you can have mine. I don't know what happened to mine, but
my God.
This one's been...
Since when is what's mine is yours and what's mine is my own?
I said you could have mine. It's just consider it a swap. You didn't, and all you did was write your name in it. You didn't have any notes in it.
That's because I respect books. What's on the front? What's that?
This is Tafel translation from the 1835 second edition.
She's even written on the cover of the book.
Of course I have, because, and then I have on the side, on the spine, Tafel translation. Because...
Oh my God.
Yeah, how else would you know? I'm not using the Pemberton Dudley translation. He was conceptual and not exacting to my liking. Nerd girl.
Just learned something about you, and it's like, I'm just not sure how it's sitting.
The writing in books?
I know you wrote in books, but to write on the cover of a book is sacrilege.
Please. But this is not like some leather-bound cover that I had to like scrape, a word in. This is a B. Jane. So it might have even come with a bug carcass in it and a smell. And this time, luckily, all the pages are going in the same direction. So let's not be precious.
All right. Anyway,
this is not like some precious one.
That aside.
Okay.
Get to your point.
My point is, now I lost my page. But and I really suggest this. When I did my autoimmune weekend in Florida, in Orlando last year, I had the best time. I had such a great privilege to speak to the Florida Homeopathic Society, and there were lots of people there. We had a great time. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. And I did 2 full days on autoimmunity and context, history, all this stuff. Anyway, but I schlepped my chronic diseases so that I could show the students.
Chronic diseases?
Okay, you're fair enough. But like, we have all those really beautiful ones. I'm not going to mess with those.
Yeah.
This is whatevs. Okay. So, but I showed them all of the ways in which I have annotated and put sticky notes in, because you want to reference this for various reasons. Of course, my stickies will be different than somebody else's. Like, for example, I have here a sticky note that says the list of names of diseases. Right. And so, for example, where Hahnemann has all of the diseases associated with psora, he has pages of symptoms associated with psora. But like, if you were to, like, when we talk about the checklist, yeah. So, for example, loud talking, screaming during sleep is listed as a psoric symptom. It's the first one that I looked at. You could stress test that.
Totally.
Give me a syphilitic example of loud talking and screaming during sleep.
The way I would do it is I would look at what I would consider to be a guaranteed cured with a small c case, where I'd give mercury or platina, and it's a single remedy, or only syphilitic remedies would have been used. And then I would look back to see if that symptom was ever in the thing, to see if it could be in a syphilitic case for a psychotic case.
How would you manage that with, I think about the remedies, like polycrest remedies that are termed multimiasmatic, like calcarea carbonicum, primarily an antipsoric, but,
Well, that's where you want Chowdhury's ABC grade. remedies, because that actually answers your question. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. That's interesting. Would you say more about that for the people?
Well, because there's plenty of books in the tension or the landscape of opinions in homeopathy about miasmatic theory. For me, the book that I've landed on that I like the most is Chowdhury. And the reason for that, and it's not Henny Hoyden's Mast, although I would say that book is pretty good, but there's a few challenges in it for me. But where I like Chowdhury is because I like the way he writes about the indications so that you can recognize it in your client. And then at the end of each chapter, he's got hardcore psychotic remedies, antipsychotic remedies, A grade. He says A grade antisoric remedies, A grade antisyphilitic remedies. And then he's got B grade and then C grade. Yeah. And the thing is, you see sulfur is a C grade antipsychotic.
Yeah, but an A grade antisoric.
And tuberculinum is a B grade antipsychotic.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, oh yeah, you think about it, because if you look at the cluster of symptoms in, say, tuberculinum or sulfur or any other remedy, of course there are some psychotic symptoms. Calcarb, there are psychotic symptoms in it, even though it's one of the great antisorics.
Right. So I like this because I'm not a fan of I'm not a super fan of any of the secondary literature on chronic diseases, and I find them challenging for clinical teaching, because students, as you're learning, you want something to anchor to. And so when you're given a list, it's very tempting. It's almost not even tempting. It feels like a lifeline to have a checklist. And I think it becomes confusing. And because of that, I have had some, let's just say, emotions.
Strong hysteria, I think, would be the term, my love.
Tantrum, maybe.
Ranting. Yeah. Hair pulling, yelling.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of the above.
No, it's not. But it's not beautiful.
It's not, because the thing is, everything that is written through someone's lens of what they believe the underpinning rationale to be. Yeah. And I believe unless you see chronic diseases for what it is, then I take umbrage with many of the secondary umbrage. I take umbrage with it, and the reason is that Hahnemann was. I hate to say I feel sure about something, because I don't want to have so much egg on my face. So the question has to be seen in the context of a lot of parameters, like the point in history. Where was Hahnemann on his journey? What problems was he trying? What problems was he trying to solve? And then what changed in the system as an adaptive measure? In other words, he didn't change and say, give 5 remedies and detoxify people and blah, 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 blah. He didn't do any of that. He recalibrated his assumptions, which I think is really interesting. And so that recalibration resulted in something really important, which is that he... Sorry, I'm taking a picture of the cat over here because it's really cute. Shiny thing. That he recalibrated what remedies he considered to be useful in the treatment of chronic disease. Yeah. He moved away from strictly plant-based medicines to this whole new realm. Right? Hughes writes that Hahnemann reached that point where an entirely new set of medicaments was required, and they are mostly mineral remedies. Yeah. There are some plants, the plant remedies are plants that are useful in the acute treatment, usually, of both syphilis and gonorrhea. But then, the thing is, and I've been trying to figure something out, which is Hahnemann, and I guess I haven't completed the searching, but I want to understand sort of where he places venoms and or other animal remedies on that trajectory. And maybe they're all different, but like, for example, if you're looking at a cardiotoxic snake venom or a neurotoxic spider. I mean, so sepia, for example, right? So Hahnemann introduced sepia, and so what made him, so there are, actually I know the answer to some of this. So looking at some of the creatures, because they had use, like, for example, Spongiatosta, right? So there are all these questions. Why was he setting a sponge on fire? And I have a few answers for that, but there's also Arnauld of Villanova, an alchemist, introduced that as a remedy or a medicine for goiter.
Toasted sponge.
And so once you start to then sort of deconstruct this paradigm, let's call it a paradigm instead of a theory for now, for today. We might not remember we called it a paradigm in this, but...
Well, it's not. But anyway. But keep going. Okay. I didn't mean to say that.
That's okay. Yeah. But so there's this idea... That's Sir Isaac Newton, our cat, by the way, making that meowing. He wants to go out because the rain stopped. Once you start to look at it through that lens, you see that chronic diseases I think Hahnemann was pulling a lot of threads. And, people often will ask, what if Hahnemann had lived forever, which always makes me laugh because an alchemist lives forever, or at least until the elixir runs out. If he had lived longer, what might he have changed? And I think the foundational principles of the system are all there and wouldn't change. They are based on the laws of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. However, as he's introducing more substances into the Materia Medica, I believe that his encounters with the information about those substances would have brought him more guidance. So, for example, if he introduced Spongiatosta, you could ask several questions about it. Number one, you could say, why toast a sea sponge? Well, you could look at it from a balancing of the elements perspective. He's got a substance that lives in water that is a combination of minerals, and it was actually considered a plant until 19th century, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. Sponges were considered plants. Yeah, there was like a recalibration of taxonomy sometime in the 19th century. Anywho, so you have either a plant or plant, sort of this, it's really like a combination of minerals, isn't it? That's alive, right? And you have that, and then it lives in water, and then he set it on fire. Well, that's in an attempt to include all of the elements, or in a balance of the elements. You could look at it and say, okay, for example, why, when Hahnemann, we talk about the Soric triad, sulfur, lycopodium, calcarea carbonicum. Sulfur, that is one of the main elements talked about in alchemy: sulfur, mercury, and salt. Yeah, and then you've got a plant, lycopodium. So calc carb, he didn't choose another mineral like sulfur. What did he choose? He chose the middle layer of an oyster shell. He went to the animal kingdom. Yeah. Not only that, you could get calcium from a bone of any kind, but he chose to do it from a sea creature, because I think that's both animal and then the element of water, because sulfur represented fire. Do you see what I mean? So that's why, to me, those books, those secondary source materials, are basically like if you ask ChatGPT to go through and sort out lists of symptoms for you, that's what it would do. But would it have at what point does it actually go to some of those primary, when I say primary source materials, you'd have to know where Hahnemann was going, what questions was he asking that informed what makes up this book. And that to me is how the paradigm gets applied. But that's an incomplete level of understanding for us, but still, I think, really useful to know.
So, I hear you. Yeah. One of the things you said before, which I like that we agree on, is that he seems to have been saying at the very outset that his understanding of a miasmatic disease is an infection by an animal we can't see yet. I think it's or millions of animals we can't see yet.
Well,
right?
Can I read you something from chronic diseases that goes along with that? Because I pulled this out.
Yeah.
He says...
it's a nice segue.
Yeah, so he's talking about SORA, the fundamental disease of so many chronic maladies, each different from the others, but really is not, as may readily be seen from the agreement of several symptoms common to them, which appear as the disease runs its course, da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, and then in the next paragraph, he ends it with, they must therefore all of their origin and foundation constant chronic miasms, whereby their parasitical existence in the human organism is enabled to continually rise and grow.
Well, that's really interesting because it actually gives a little bit of an opening there for talking about susceptibility.
Yes.
For the animal, for the bug, for the germ. Oh, that's really interesting.
Well, not just susceptibility, but
I haven't really thought about that before.
The proper ecosystem.
Right.
Well, you should listen to my lectures more closely, my dear.
Because
I don't have time for that. No, but seriously, because that whole idea, that's what I've come to from working with all these pans and pandas cases. That's one of the ways that this just has totally clicked. That this is soric. This is manifest soric disease, period, the end.
Yeah, but again, my question is very specific.
Yeah.
So if a miasm is an infectious agent,
yeah,
right? Why did he choose that word? Because that's not what the word meant. It's not what it meant in Greek, ancient Greek, and it's not the way in which the word was used.
Right, it meant a taint,
in
like a pollution.
28.
Well, that's what I was saying before. That's why I am looking for...
So why is he using that word?
Because I think it has to do with the spontaneous generation that is a part of this process of the cycle of life.
Give me a lift. We're going up. Tell me about spontaneous generation is again.
It's spontaneous generation is if you look at it through the alchemical lens. I can laugh at myself with. I should just have a shirt.
Because I know that it's a really important theory that dominated science for a period of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
but what is it?
Something dies. And then life comes from it, which is why, if you look at all the remedies in chronic diseases, if you just look at the tranches of remedies that were introduced in the 5 editions of chronic diseases, almost all of them are minerals. Like, I don't know what percentages, I have to add them up. But in the beginning, tons of carbons, right? Tons and tons of carbons, including, carboanimalus, carboveg, graphites, all of these, petroleum, all the carbon-based substances.
I'm missing it. I'm still missing it.
Because
what is the theory saying? It says that from a dead thing, life comes?
Yes.
That's what it says.
Well, it's the spontaneity of life. It's the spontaneity of life. And so what is chronic disease? Is putting life back into an organism, otherwise losing life.
Why it's in my head is because Bill Bryson has a chapter about it in his short history of nearly everything.
I didn't know.
Which is, we got it on Audible.
I'm going to have to listen to that.
Well, I listened to that, and that's how I learned about Cope.
That's right, the
being
guy
the
from
paleontologist.
Aubrey.
Yeah. So, these kittens are desperate to get out, aren't they? They are desperate
to get out. And you know what? I am desperate to get back to my preparation for tonight.
But I'm talking about Hahnemann's theory of chronic disease.
Do you know, every time somebody says, I love listening to your podcast. So for those of you who actually appreciate the ridiculousness of it, we thank you.
All right. If we're drawing it to a close, we have had a dance around Hahnemann's chronic diseases.
Yeah.
And
a little bit.
I talked a little bit about what's coming up for us, and let's do it again.
Why not? Oh, we keep saying we want to do this twice a week. That's the goal. I'm going to keep saying it until we make it happen.
It's got to be scheduled, or even scheduled.
Okay. Hey, everybody. High five. Thanks for listening and caring about homeopathy.
And we'll see you next time
on the BBC.
What if you gave yourself 3 days to deepen your practice, connect with a like-minded community, and walk away with 9 CEUs? The Potentized Homeopath Retreat isn't just another seminar. It's a rich, immersive experience. You'll explore complex case management for autoimmune conditions and pandas, dive into potency and posology, and engage with 15 new provings and reproving remedies. There's even a Homeo Nerd Out party and a peek inside the Hahnemann archives. All this while supporting the HOHM Foundation's vital work in research and education. Join us in Philly, or virtually, June 2nd through 4th. Visit ahe.online/events to reserve your spot today. The Academy of Homeopathy Education provides various pathways through our program depending on your desired outcome. Our acute care homeopathy programs cater to students and medical professionals who aspire to use homeopathy in an acute care setting. We also offer introductory, professional, clinical training, and postgraduate programs. You can learn more at ahe.online/events.